What's up, everyone? Today we're going to talk about how to buy your first rental property. I purchased my first rental property about 7 years ago. It was a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo in South Beach in San Francisco. It was a really small place, less than 700 square feet. I rented the place out as a high-end furnished rental, and I was getting a few $100s in cash flow every month. After just 1 year, the value of the condo appreciated by over 30%. So I sold the condo and used the proceeds to invest in my house flipping career and also purchasing more rental properties. So the initial $100,000 of investment that I put as down payment into the condo actually snowballed into an 8-figure house flipping business that I'm running now. And the best part is, the original $100,000 down payment actually was not from my own bank account. I used a HELOC, home equity line of credit, to do it. In this video, I'm going to use my own experience and all the tips and tricks I've learned over the years to show you how to finance and also how to find the right rental property for you. If this is your first time watching my videos, my name is Elisa and I'm a real estate investor and house flipper in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been flipping houses for 4 years now, and I want to use this channel to educate more people to start real estate investing and achieve financial freedom. The first step in purchasing your rental property is financing. You need to figure out how you are going to pay for the property. The best way to purchase your rental property would be to use a conventional mortgage. Even if you have enough money to use all cash on the property, I still recommend you to get a mortgage, because then you would be able to use a smaller amount of cash to leverage a larger amount of other people's money, and then you can use the rest of your money to purchase even more rental properties and get a better return. To apply for a mortgage, you need a down payment first. Some lenders may allow you to put down a different percentage of the purchase price, but I recommend you to put down at least 20% of the purchase price, because it will allow you to not have to pay the PMI, mortgage insurance, and you can also get a better interest rate. Most people probably save up to have enough money to use as down payment, but in my experience, as I mentioned earlier, I actually didn't have the money in my bank account, and instead I borrowed a HELOC, home equity line of credit, from my primary residence to use as down payment. If you have a primary residence and you have some equity in the home, I highly recommend you to get a HELOC, even if you don't need any money today. Every time I purchase a new primary residence, I always try to secure a HELOC as soon as I have enough equity in the home. HELOC gives you a lot of flexibility. Once your credit is approved, they usually give you a time window, say 10 years, so you can draw funds from the account anytime you need money within the 10 years period. And when you don't have any balance on the account, you don't pay any interest. You only pay interest on the money that you borrow. And in the 10 years time, you can borrow money out multiple times and pay it back whenever you have funds available. Right now, as I'm making this video in the beginning of 2021, it's an amazing time to get a HELOC because the interest rate is lower than ever. Usually the HELOC interest rate is floating and it's based on the prime rate. Today, the prime rate is 3.25, and the HELOC that I recently applied for is prime plus a quarter. So the HELOC rate currently is 3.5%, which is really low. Back when I purchased my first rental property using a HELOC, the HELOC interest I got was actually prime plus 1, and the prime rate back then was over 4%, so it was a lot higher than what it is now. Once you figure out where your down payment is going to come from, whether from a savings account or from a HELOC, it's time to get a pre-approval. I can't stress this enough, but it's really important that you get a pre-approval before you start looking for houses. A pre-approval from the bank tells you exactly how much you can afford, so you're not wasting time looking at houses that are out of your budget, and you can narrow down your search. In many areas, the housing market can also be very competitive, especially in the San Francisco Bay Area where I'm located. Many houses are sold within a couple days being on the market. So when you have a pre-approval in hand, it gives you the opportunity to pull the trigger really quick when you find the properties that you want to buy. Now, some tips on getting a mortgage for your first rental. First of all, when you get a mortgage for a rental property, the interest rate is usually higher than buying a primary residence. So if you can live in the property for some time so you can qualify as a home buyer, then you can take advantage of a little better interest rate. Second of all, when you get a mortgage interest quote, you go to a big bank like Bank of America, Citibank, or Wells Fargo. They usually have better interest rates than smaller banks or from a mortgage broker. But their underwriting is also more strict. If you have a stable job and a good W-2 income that qualifies you for a mortgage, then going to a big bank is probably the best way to go. But if you are self-employed and your income and credits are not as strong, then you may consider going to a mortgage broker. Mortgage brokers usually have more flexibility in underwriting because they work with multiple lenders. When I purchased my first rental property, the mortgage on my primary residence actually already maxed out my income. So I went to a mortgage broker and he was able to qualify me based on the potential rent income from the rental. I also shared some other mortgage tips in this video, how to buy your first home. Check it out. Before we go to the next step, really quick, smash the like button below and subscribe to the channel so you'll see more videos like this. The second step is to decide where to buy. It really depends on what you are looking for and what you are comfortable with. You can purchase a rental where you live locally. It gives you a lot of control on the property. If the house needs a remodel, then you can manage the project yourself easily, and when you rent it out, you can also manage the property yourself. If you live in an expensive area like I do in the Bay Area, buying a property locally probably won't give you a lot of cash flow because the price to rent ratio is so high. Even though there's not great cash flow, there could be a good opportunity for appreciation because home prices are always on the rise and the value of your rental could increase dramatically like it did on my first rental. For me personally, I love investing in my backyard because I love the control over my properties. I like to be able to see them whenever I want to, and I want to be able to manage maintenance when it's needed easily locally. But for some people, it might be more important to get a stable cash flow that can be used as a regular monthly income, and appreciation is not as important to them. So if that's the case, then they would want to purchase at a place where the price to rent ratio is not as high and they can get a good cash flow from the rental property. If cash flow is your goal and you live in an area where after the mortgage payment, after property taxes and all the expenses, there's still more rent left as cash flow, then that's great. But if that's not the case, then you may have to invest out of the area. If you decide to invest out of the area, then you would have to have a good property manager locally, and you may also need a handyman or a contractor who can take care of the maintenance needs of your property. There's also a third option. Instead of investing locally or out of the area, you can invest somewhere that's within a couple hours of driving from where you live, where you can get a decent cash flow, and you can also have some control over the property so you wouldn't have to rely on outside management completely. For example, if you live in the Bay Area, instead of investing locally where home prices are so high, you can go out of the area for a couple of hours to Antioch or Pittsburgh, where home prices are much lower, where you have a better chance of getting a cash flow and also enjoy some forms of appreciation. And some people even go as far as Sacramento, where the cash flow is a lot better too. The third step is to find a deal. The most common way of finding a property is to go on MLS, the multiple listing service. It's also the open market for all the homes for sale. If you work with a real estate agent, they can set up an alert for you based on your search criteria. So every time a property goes on the market that fits your criteria, you will get notified. The downside of using the MLS is there's usually a lot of competition, and when a property is desirable, a lot of buyers tend to want to buy the same property and they bid the price up, and the price you pay for a property on the open market is the market value of the property, so you don't have any equity in the house when you first purchase it. As an investor, if you want to get a better deal on a property, then the best way to do it is to make friends with real estate agents, because agents have a lot of access to pre-market and off-market properties where you can get a better deal. When I purchased my first rental property back in 2014, the market was appreciating like crazy, and most homes that were selling on the market were going for at least 10% above the asking price. But I didn't purchase my rental on the open market, and instead I purchased it pre-market from an agent that I already have a relationship who gave me the inside scoop. So I only had to pay the asking price on that condo without having to compete with anyone. Now that I'm a professional house flipper, I have a large network of real estate agents who bring fixer-upper deals to me. So how do you set up a search criteria? The first consideration should be location. You might have heard that the golden rule of real estate is location, location, location. So the location is the most important factor in determining the value of a home. When you choose the location of your first rental, you want to choose somewhere that's safe and also convenient, so close to jobs and transportation ideally. In any certain areas, there are usually the best properties in the best neighborhoods, and there's the oldest properties in the roughest neighborhoods. And you probably don't want to invest in either of those because the best properties usually cost a lot of money, and after paying the mortgage, you won't have a lot of cash flow left. But the properties in the roughest neighborhoods usually are not that safe to invest in, and it will be harder to replace your tenants, and also when you try to resell the property, you may have trouble. So my advice is to invest somewhere middle in the road. The median neighborhoods have median prices and also median rents, and they generate decent cash flow and also are safe to invest in. You also want to decide on the type of property. You can purchase from condos, townhomes, single-family homes, 2 to 4 unit, multifamily properties. Condos and townhomes usually are the cheapest, but before you purchase anything, you really want to understand their HOA guidelines to make sure that there's no terms that prevent you from renting out your home. For example, I know some HOAs have the rules where they prevent people from renting out their homes for 30 days or less. And condos and townhomes usually have HOA dues, so you want to take that into account when you calculate your cash flow. My first rental was a condo because I was not able to afford a single family or multifamily property as a rental, and it wouldn't have given me as good as a cash flow either. Compared to multifamily homes, single-family homes have a bigger buyer pool when you try to resell the property because you can sell it either to an end buyer or to an investor. Multifamily properties generate better cash flow because you have multiple tenants. You should also consider what condition of homes you want to purchase. You can either purchase a fixer-upper or a home that's move-in ready. If you purchase a fixer-upper, you can get a better deal because a lot of home buyers don't want to have to do any work. But it can take you time, money, and can cause you a lot of headache to have to do a remodel and have to deal with a contractor. If you purchase a property that's move-in ready, then you have to pay a little more upfront, but it's less work and less risk. The most important thing to consider before deciding to purchase a property is to determine the cash flow. To calculate the cash flow, you can use your rent income minus the mortgage payment, property taxes, insurance, HOA dues, and if you're hiring a property manager, property management fees, and any repairs and maintenance, which you can estimate as 10% of your monthly rent. You also want to take into account vacancy. If a tenant moves out, it may take you some time to fill it back up, and you can estimate it by using 5 to 10% of your monthly rent. If you don't know how much rent you can get, you can do a search on Craigslist. You can search for a certain area and you can look up all the properties that are available for rent in that city or in that neighborhood. And you can look at their pictures and the condition and also the amenities, compare the prices. You can also run a test ad on Craigslist to see if you get any responses at a certain rent. Rental Meter is also a place where you can get estimate rents, but it's probably not as accurate as Craigslist. I use Zillow Mortgage Calculator to calculate mortgage payment and other expenses. If you are purchasing a home at $200,000 and you put down 20%, $40,000, with a 30-year fixed mortgage program, assuming you get an interest rate at 3%, the monthly mortgage payment, principal and interest would be $675. And your financial responsibilities also include property taxes and homeowner insurance, so the total monthly payment comes out to about $858. Once you find your ideal rental property, the next step is to make an offer. There are two approaches to determine how much you should offer on a home. The first one is using competitive market analysis, it's the CMA. If you work with a real estate agent, they can run the analysis for you. If you don't work with an agent or you want to do the analysis yourself, check out this video to see how to determine the value of a home. But because you are buying this property as a rental, you want to make sure that you are definitely going to have a positive cash flow. So with the rent you are going to get, after covering the mortgage payment based on the price that you are going to offer, you will still have enough rent left after all the expenses. If your offer is accepted, then the next step is to do due diligence. The due diligence is usually done during the property contingency period. That's when you can back out of the contract without any consequences. But if your offer doesn't have any property contingency period built in it, then you should do the due diligence before making an offer. During the due diligence, you want to order inspections on a home if they're not already provided by the seller. You can get a property inspection, termite inspection, roof inspection, and chimney inspection, or you can also bring in a contractor to check out the house to see if there are any repairs necessary. You also want to drive around the neighborhood, especially at night, to see if there's any suspicious activities. As mentioned earlier, you can also use this time to run test ads on Craigslist to see how much rent you can get on the rental. After doing due diligence, the last and final step is to close on the loan and become a landlord. This is going to be so exciting because you get rent income every month passively, and at the same time, you also get to enjoy the tax benefits like the depreciation and deductions. If you have questions regarding purchasing your first rental, drop a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button below and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.